When asked to comment on the significance of his film 2001: A Space Odyssey, director Stanley Kubrick said, "It's not a message I ever intended to convey in words. 2001 is a non-verbal experience. I tried to create a visual experience, one that bypasses verbalized pigeonholing and directly penetrates the subconscious with an emotional and philosophic content." Though abstract, this quote does a good job of describing how it feels to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. Right from the get-go, the movie feels like a fever dream, twisting in and out of narratives, settings, and impressive visual effects that were even more groundbreaking when the film was released in 1968. There are scenes that feature conventional dialogue and scenarios, but those dynamics are used as tools to serve the overall experience. I'm not going to spoil the whole film or anything. I think it's a beautiful piece of art and I highly recommend you watch it. When you're trying to create a non-verbal experience, what type of music do you use? In Kubrick's case, he commissioned a score from Alex North, a notable Hollywood composer who had already worked with Kubrick on Spartacus and Dr. Strangelove. However, that score did not end up being used for the film. Instead, Kubrick opted to keep the original guide tracks as the score. In other words, while in production, he put pieces of pre-recorded music in the film as a way to show MGM what he wanted the final score to sound like, but then just decided to use that. Though it might seem like a lazy decision, this would actually go on to be incredibly influential. For many, the fanciful nature of Johann Strauss's The Blue Danube Waltz goes perfectly with the natural beauty and isolation found in outer space. The opening to Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra has also become synonymous with 2001 in pop culture due to its prominence in the film. Juxtaposing music from the late 1800s with depictions of outer space feels logical when you consider the history of sci-fi music. European romantic orchestral music has always had a place in the genre, providing a wonderful grounding sense that plays directly into the constant tension between familiar and other present in so many films. If you want to learn more about this tension and its history, I'll link to my previous video on the subject in the description. Kubrick seems to have been completely aware of the dynamics he was creating. The inclusion of then contemporary Ligeti pieces creates a stark contrast to the more familiar world of the aforementioned late romantic music. Though at the time it would have been possible for audience members to have heard the Ligeti pieces before, it's more likely that the general public would be familiar with the other music. The music in 2001: A Space Odyssey functions like a character in the story. It rarely interferes with the action and helps carry the narrative when there's no dialogue to do so. However, my absolute favorite part of the music of 2001 is when the computer Hal sings the 1892 pop song Daisy Bell. It sounds like a moment of desperation during one of the film's most intense scenes. I know it seems weird to not want to spoil a 50-year-old movie, but I think the scene itself is worth watching on its own if you don't already know what I'm talking about. The relevance of Daisy Bell being sung by a computer was both emotional and historical. Not only was it a classic pop song, but it was also the first song sung via computer speech synthesis by the IBM 7094 in 1961. To hear a robot sing a song that displays such human emotions of love and longing feels humanizing, making the circumstances of the scene even more powerful. The importance of the song being a recognizable pop song can be seen in the international releases of 2001. In dubs of the movie, the song was swapped out for other songs that were similarly antiquated but recognizable. Using a singular pop song in a film that otherwise had non-verbal music was a stark choice and allows the pop song to function in a very specific way. Pop songs are often very relatable, allowing them to evoke emotion within audience members. Even if the pop songs are not well known, they typically play upon contemporary Western music conventions that are easily recognizable. That's why I think the usage of Daisy Bell in 2001: A Space Odyssey is just perfect. After I uploaded last week's video on why many Disney songs sound so queer, I began brainstorming ideas for my next topic. I had been meaning to make a video on the 2008 Disney-Pixar film WALL-E for a while, so I decided to try watching it and jog my memory. However, within a minute of the film starting, I was sobbing. I was ugly crying, and I felt devastated. The opening sequence is so perfect, powerful, and emotional that I immediately knew what I wanted to focus on for this video. So let's talk about what happened to make me feel that way, and why I think the music of WALL-E works so well.
Fun to be free, to be on the move, to go for a hike or whatever you like to do. Do all there is to be done. It's fun, it's fun, it's fun to be free, fun to be free.
Released on June 27, 2008, WALL-E is a film by Pixar that presents a very emotional argument for environmental conservation. In the movie, a trash compactor robot named WALL-E roams the deserted Earth to clean up the garbage that human civilization left behind when the corporation by and large evacuated the planet 7 centuries earlier. WALL-E is left to not only clean up trash, but also figure out his place in the world and understand what it means to love. Similar to 2001, I think this is a special film, and I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. I really recommend that you watch it. The movie features a wonderful score by Thomas Newman, a film composer who knows how to complement environments through texture and careful attention to detail. However, Newman's score did not appear in the opening sequence that made me sob. His score is also not the subject of this video. WALL-E opens with shots of the galaxy. Empty, open, and isolated. The first line of the movie is not spoken by a character, but by a song, specifically Put On Your Sunday Clothes from Hello, Dolly. As the character Cornelia sings to Barnaby, the two optimistically talk about putting themselves out there in a big city to find love and happiness. Of course, those unfamiliar with the story of Hello, Dolly will not understand the context of the lyrics. All that's communicated directly is a horrifying juxtaposition between a cheerful, antiquated pop song and shots of a ravaged and abandoned Earth, covered in trash and remnants of industrial technology. That's what made me start sobbing immediately. There's something so personal and affecting about seeing a post-apocalyptic Earth and hearing a remnant of the civilization that previously occupied it. At first, this might appear to be a completely random song choice, but it was a deliberate decision on the part of director Andrew Stanton. I had always wanted to open with something old-fashioned compared to this apocalyptic, futuristic setting. I had always defaulted to thinking it would be something like old swing music, and I had French swing music in my head. The idea to use French swing music would be dropped after The Triplets of Belleville was released in 2003, as it was a film that heavily featured that music. While vetting other possibilities, Stanton discovered that he still had Put On Your Sunday Clothes in his music library, as a result of portraying Barnaby in a high school production of Hello, Dolly. The instant I heard the opening of Put On Your Sunday Clothes with the opening phrase out there, I was hooked. I knew it was the weirdest idea I'd ever had, so I kept it to myself for a while until I felt like I'd better justify its use. Then I realized the song is about these two naive guys who've never left their small town and just want to venture to the big city for one night and kiss a girl. That's my main character. The love song It Only Takes a Moment was also chosen to be in the film. It was decided that the songs would be discovered by WALL-E via a VHS copy of the 1969 movie version of the musical, cementing the music in the story as a remnant of lost time. Though Hello, Dolly isn't necessarily an obscure musical, it's still not as popular as other shows of the time that were also made into films, such as My Fair Lady and The Sound of Music. To make the musical feel even more mysterious to audiences, no shots of the titular character of Dolly were included, because many people would probably recognize Barbra Streisand due to her long-standing popularity outside of the movie musical. Stanton has also stated that the choice to use the film version of the musical came as a result of the narrative of WALL-E. The movie being on a VHS was just an easy way for WALL-E to discover and connect with the songs, but there's also so much significance behind that specific circumstance. The film version of Hello, Dolly is often regarded as the last big-budget Hollywood musical, signifying the end of an industry that largely imploded and wouldn't be seen in a reliable capacity until a few decades later. If you're curious about learning more regarding that history, I'll link to a great Lindsay Ellis video about the rise and fall of the Hollywood musical in the description. However, the important part for you to know is that the film itself was the end of an era. On top of this, the musical itself was set in the early 20th century, and specifically during a time where the concept of industrialization was largely considered to be futuristic and not destructive. Now many believe that the mainstream optimism of the past was misguided, and we should have known better. But that's not necessarily how WALL-E sees it. Throughout the movie, Hello, Dolly is a guide, not just for understanding the history of human civilization, but also how to love and be loved. WALL-E watches It Only Takes a Moment to learn about affection, and directly applies that to his courtship with Eve later in the movie. Similar to Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey and Daisy Belle, the songs of Hello, Dolly help humanize WALL-E as a character. Even though he might not have experienced love at the beginning of the movie, he wants to understand it. He's mesmerized by all of the flaws and nuances that make being human so difficult and beautiful. His fascination with emotion is incredibly powerful, especially when you consider how lonely he is at the beginning of the film. In his thesis Pop Music and Characterization in Narrative Film, Ian Garwood examines the precedent for films that incorporate pop music as an emotional shorthand for audiences. In the section about Sleepless in Seattle, he breaks down the film's opening sequence to talk about the power of juxtaposing modern imagery with supposedly timeless music. The song As Time Goes By is used alongside romantic imagery to signal to the audience that A, the film is timeless, and B, it is a romance. Because the song itself has a historical precedent in Casablanca, the general public's perception of the song is that it's indicative of romance and therefore it's used in romantic situations. Finally, it comments upon the narrative, not just in the sense of advising the viewer of the spirit in which they should read the film, its global function, but also by responding to its immediate narrative surroundings. I think this is very similar to how WALL-E uses music from Hello, Dolly. Even if people don't recognize the song itself, the lyrics clearly get across the nature of the song. Put on your Sunday clothes, there's lots of world out there. Get out the brilliantine and dime cigars. We're gonna find adventure in the evening air. Girls in white in a perfumed night where the lights are bright as the stars. I don't think it's a mistake that Put On Your Sunday Clothes is the first thing you hear in the film. The song does three wonderful things with one swift motion. It introduces you to the post-apocalyptic world that the movie takes place in. It solidifies what exactly happened. The Earth used to be populated by humans, but isn't anymore. The industrial imagery mixed with the desolate climate heavily implies that there was some type of ecological collapse. It introduces the optimistic and ultimately humanistic emotions that propel Wally through the film. The fact that a film can do that with just a single pop song is truly inspiring to me. It's also why I started sobbing when I saw the opening sequence. As someone living in 2020, it's very easy to see how the misguided and inaccurate optimism of the past led humanity to destroy the world while simultaneously inhabiting it. As I see greedy politicians continue to make selfish choices and endanger the lives of billions of people, it's hard not to be overwhelmed with emotion. Even if I, as someone on the internet and living in a city, am somewhat complicit in our ecologically hurtful society, I still want to continuously strive to be a better person to others and the environment. To see all of that destruction and desecration of beauty is heartbreaking. But to see Wally take those shattered pieces of human experience and put them back together over the course of the film turns that feeling into optimism. After Wally debuted, Michael Crawford, the original Cornelius from the 1969 Hello, Dolly film, who can be seen in the footage in Wally, called up Stanton to ask him out to dinner. There, he told a story that blew the director away. Crawford said when he had to punch the very beginning of the song with the orchestra and say the phrase, "out there," he was never getting it right, and finally director Gene Kelly had to come out of the booth and come over to him, Stanton explains. Kelly said, "Kid, you gotta sing this like it means more than the world. This is bigger than the universe. Just think of the stars." And the take that they used was the one where he was thinking of the stars when he sang "out there." So when he saw the opening of Wally and it was just this field of stars, it just blew his mind. Put on your Sunday clothes when you feel down and out. Straight down the street and have your picture took. Dressed like a dream, your spirit seemed to turn around. That Sunday shine is a certain sign that you feel as fine as you look. Beneath your parasol, the world is all a smile that makes you feel brand new down to your toes. Get out your feathers, your patent leathers, your beads and buckles and bows. For there's no blue Monday in your Sunday, no blue Monday in your Sunday, no blue Monday in your Sunday clothes.